they did cast the show, I've worked out. They just got all the worst singers in America on purpose to audition.
Yeah.
No one told me that. It took me about 10 years to realize.
For years, one man has orchestrated the rise and fall of global entertainment empires. He was sharp-tongued, brutally honest, and impossible to impress. Every word he spoke cut sharper than an applause. But lately, something has changed. In this video, we're exposing 5 judges who've clashed with, criticized, and confronted the very architect of the X Factor and America's Got Talent. Who were they? And more importantly, what did they do that drove the toughest man on television to finally expose his own reputation and the panel? Long before Simon Cowell became the man who could make or break a career with a single raised eyebrow, he was just a boy growing up in Hertfordshire. England-born in 1959, Simon wasn't the type of student teachers remembered for brilliance or discipline. He often clashed with authority, hated being told what to do, and found school boring. His father, Eric Cowell, worked as an executive at EMI Music Publishing, while his mother, Julie, was a ballet dancer and socialite. Growing up with those connections gave Simon access to worlds most kids wouldn't see, yet he rarely followed the expected path. He was restless, mischievous, and endlessly curious. At 8, he was already experimenting with rebellion, drinking, smoking, and even almost burning his house down to prove a point to his brother that Santa Claus never existed. School offered no challenge for him, and he bounced between classrooms, searching for something to hold his attention. By 16, he left with his GCEO levels in English language, literature, and sociology, ready to step into a world where he could carve his own path. That early energy, the refusal to settle, and the drive to question everything became the foundation of a man who would reshape entertainment forever. After leaving school, Simon landed a low-level position in the mailroom at MI thanks to his father's connections. Most people might have seen that as a small start, but Simon treated it like his personal classroom. He studied the rhythms of the music business, learning how songs were sold, how talent was signed, and how money really worked in the industry. By the early 1980s, Simon Cowell began climbing the ladder, moving into talent scouting and music production, facing failure after failure, and learning which risks were worth taking. He wasn't chasing fame, he only wanted influence. The kind of power that lets you decide who succeeds and who doesn't. The power that can change careers in a single moment. And he was willing to work harder than anyone to earn it. His big break came when he became a judge on Pop Idol in the early 2000s, the British show that later inspired America's American Idol. Suddenly, Simon wasn't just a behind-the-scenes figure. He was in front of millions every week, delivering brutally honest critiques that either crushed dreams or created stars. This reputation made him irresistible to producers, and immediately, Simon Cowell realized that the potential wasn't just in finding singers, it was in creating personalities, tension, and stories that audiences couldn't look away from. He saw a chance to expand the concept, to make a show that could highlight more types of performers, give judges more authority, and allow viewers to feel emotionally invested in every decision. So, in 2004, he launched The X Factor. Unlike Pop Idol, it wasn't limited to solo singers competing under a single set of rules. Simon introduced multiple categories, including boys, girls, for 25s, and a group, with each assigned to a judge who would mentor their contestants. This move changed everything because it was very strategic. By giving judges ownership of their groups, Cowell created a system where personality, mentorship, and competition were all intertwined. The drama wasn't just in the auditions anymore, It was now in the relationships between judges, the stakes for contestants, and the moments that made viewers lean in, anticipating the next twist. Then, 3 years later, Simon Cowell launched Britain's Got Talent and expanded that influence. This time around, he wasn't searching for singers solely. The show welcomed dancers, magicians, comedians, and acts nobody even expected. The panel became the narrative. The auditions were theater, and Simon's reactions set the pace. In these evolving shows, Simon Cowell's blunt honesty became his signature. He could dismantle a performance with a single comment, and the world watched because he wasn't playing to the cameras. He was playing to reality. His reputation for directness wasn't only for shock value. It was a tool, a way to maintain authority in a world where producers, contestants, and audiences all had opinions. Every gesture, every word, reinforced the power he held over the stage, the show, and the career of anyone who dared to step in front of him. By the time Simon Cowell was firmly established on these panels, he wasn't just a judge. He was a force shaping the rules of modern talent television. He redefined how shows could be structured, how talent could be discovered, and how judges could influence not only the contestants, but the entire industry. The restless kid from Hertfordshire, who grew bored of school and early routines, had found a stage vast enough to match his vision. And that power came with choices and opinions that not only entertained but also started to stir controversy among the people sitting beside him. Everyone thinks the judge's chair is a seat of authority. But what happens when the authority itself is challenged? Well, not every voice in the panel earned Simon's respect. Who crossed the line, and why did it matter so much to him? Paula Abdul, the intimate tension scandal. Let's begin with the woman who, according to Simon himself, couldn't even share an aircraft with him. Paula Abdul wasn't just any judge. She was the original female voice on American Idol, alongside Simon and Randy Jackson, the dream team that catapulted the show to unprecedented heights from 2002 to 2010. When Paula Abdul joined American Idol in 2002, few expected the pop star and choreographer to become one of television's most memorable judges. She wasn't a stranger to fame. Paula had already danced her way through the 1980s and early 90s, choreographing music videos for Janet Jackson and the Jacksons before launching her own chart-topping music career. What made her story stand out was how she pivoted from the stage to a TV panel where the world would watch her every reaction. And sitting next to her was Simon Cowell, a man known for cutting through dreams with a single sentence. From the very beginning, Paula and Simon were a strange match. She was warm and empathetic. He was sharp-witted and pure calculation. Together, they became the center of a cultural phenomenon that no one could look away from. Paula encouraged contestants to believe in themselves, while Simon, on the other hand, reminded them why they shouldn't. The mix was chaotic, emotional, and strangely magnetic. What viewers saw every week was just a talent show. However, beneath the glamorous facade of 4 judges critiquing talent, something far more uncomfortable was brewing. In a jaw-dropping 2011 interview with Barbara Walters, Simon made a revelation that shocked the entertainment world. He claimed that during the first 2 seasons of American Idol, he and Paula couldn't travel on the same plane together. Not because of scheduling conflicts or professional obligations, but because, as Simon provocatively stated, they really disliked each other that much. The tension was so palpable, so electric, that they literally couldn't be in the same enclosed space. But Simon didn't stop there. In the same explosive interview, he went further to state that their friction was caused by intimate tension on her part. When pressed by Walters, Simon laughed and claimed Paula wanted him 1,000,000%. What made this admission even more audacious was his justification for not pursuing anything romantic. I considered it, but then I thought, I don't think the after would be as good as the before. This wasn't even playful banter at all. It was Simon publicly suggesting that Paula Abdul had romantic feelings for him, while simultaneously implying she wasn't worth his time after the initial attraction wore off. The comment was condescending, dismissive, and deeply revealing about Simon's perception of their professional dynamic. Well, Paula Abdul wasn't far off in her own recollection. She basically also said sitting next to him every week left her permanently damaged with a British accent. What makes this conflict particularly significant is the power imbalance. Simon, as a producer and creator of American Idol, held tremendous influence over not just the show's direction, but arguably over Paula's career trajectory. His willingness to weaponize this power by publicly speculating about her romantic intentions in a prime-time television interview demonstrated a troubling pattern of behavior. However, in 2005, a moment that threatened to break that entire dynamic apart evolved. A former contestant, Corey Clark, claimed that Paula had secretly coached him and engaged in an inappropriate relationship during his time on the show. It was the kind of accusation that could end careers overnight. Immediately, Fox launched an investigation, and Paula Abdul denied the claims. When the results came in, there was no evidence of wrongdoing. Still, the headlines told their own story, and for Paula, it was a nightmare. In interviews, Paula later said, "He was extremely distraught and protective and supportive of me when that happened." It was a rare glimpse into a side of Simon Cowell that audiences rarely saw. The man known for being cold and calculating became her fiercest defender when her reputation was on the line. After the scandal, Paula stayed on the show, and the public performance of their relationship carried on. Yet cracks remained, and she admitted the job took a toll. Being the only woman on the panel alongside Simon and Randy Jackson placed her in a unique position. In interviews, she confessed that some days she would shut her dressing room door to escape the tension. The relationship, while it eventually improved enough for them to work together on The X Factor USA, never fully recovered from that public humiliation. It established a troubling precedent that anyone who worked alongside Simon Cowell was vulnerable to having their personal feelings exposed and mocked on a global stage. If Paula Abdul tested Simon's patience, Sharon Osbourne tested his ego. Their clash wasn't about feelings or friendship. It was about who really held control behind the judge's desk. And when she called him out, the whole world listened. Sharon Osbourne, the too old rejection. If there's one conflict that perfectly summarizes Simon Cowell's approach to female judges, it's his relationship with Sharon Osbourne. Sharon was never one to blend into the background. Long before she joined The X Factor, she had already built a name of her own by managing the wild world of her husband, rock legend Ozzy Osbourne, and later becoming a star in her own right through the Osbournes reality show. She was very outspoken and completely unafraid of confrontation. So when she joined Simon Cowell's judging panel, it felt like television had found the perfect storm. However, over time, cracks began to show. Sharon was never shy about saying how she felt, and she started to believe her contributions were being overlooked. Simon, always the businessman, had his way of running the show in a structured, strategic way, firmly under his control. Well, Sharon didn't fit neatly into that system. In 2019, Sharon claimed that Simon had rejected her from a major television opportunity, citing her age as the reason. According to Sharon Osbourne, she had been offered a prime position on The Masked Singer US. However, she had to decline because she was contractually bound to another X Factor season with Simon. When that X Factor season was suddenly canceled, Sharon discovered she'd missed the boat on The Masked Singer entirely. a show that would have significantly boosted her career. In the midst of all these, Sharon alleged that Simon had actively told her she was too old. His exact words, according to Sharon, "She's old. We need somebody young." This wasn't constructive criticism or a creative direction. This was blatant ageism from one of television's most influential figures. In a 2024 appearance on Celebrity Big Brother, Sharon opened up about the deep wound this caused. She revealed to fellow X Factor alumnus Lewis Walsh that she felt furious and fuming about being dropped from the X Factor season that eventually never happened. The sequence of events created a perfect storm of professional betrayal. But Sharon's grievances extended far beyond this single incident. She went on record claiming that the entire environment at the X Factor and America's Got Talent operated as a boys' club, where the boys take care of each other, and the women are not paid as much as the men. What was even more damning is the fact that Sharon suggested that Simon had orchestrated feuds between female judges, particularly between herself and Danny Minogue, to create dramatic television moments. On The Talk in 2017, Sharon called Simon snotty and claimed he only surrounds himself with his little posse of close friends. She even branded him weird in interviews, revealing that she hadn't maintained contact with him. Most tellingly, when asked if she'd ever work with him again, Sharon declared she wouldn't do it for all the money in the world. Sharon's description of their relationship became increasingly harsh. At one point she said, "No disrespect to Simon Cowell, but he needed me for musical credibility on X Factor, and I delivered for him." The tension between them may have faded, but the echo of their fallout still lingers whenever the X Factor is mentioned. Because long after the cameras stopped rolling, the question remained, was their connection ever real, or was it another great performance meant for TV? By now, Simon had faced every kind of personality at the judges' table, except one woman who could match his bite, word for word, and right in front of millions. Mel B, the drink-throwing incident and ongoing tensions. Mel B had already lived more than most before she ever took a seat at the judges' table. Known to the world as the bold, fierce force from the Spice Girls, Melanie Brown transformed her career from chart-topping pop star to television personality whose presence filled the room. When she joined America's Got Talent, it wasn't to blend in. Mel B came with presence, with personality, with power. She knew how to command a stage, and she didn't back down from anyone, not even Simon. By all accounts, their professional relationship seemed functional, if not warm. But in August 2017, something shifted dramatically. After a performance that didn't impress him, he turned to Mel and said, "I kind of imagined this would be like Mel B's wedding night. A lot of anticipation, not much promise or delivery. It was meant as humor, but Mel B wasn't in a laughing mood." Emotionally vulnerable and raw, Mel B responded to Simon's quip by throwing her drink directly at him. This wasn't a dramatic overreaction in isolation. According to Mel B, the comment was the last straw on a particularly emotional evening. She explained, "Evie Claire really made me cry because it made me think about my dad. And my dad recently passed from cancer also, after an almost 89-year struggle. So a story like that from such a young girl really touches my heart. She just sounded so beautiful, and I couldn't stop crying. So I went from that to Simon saying something so rude and inappropriate." While host Tyra Banks attempted to minimize the incident by suggesting Simon teases Mel B as if she were his younger sister, the reality was far more troubling. After the incident, Mel B even gave an interview where she said, "He should know, if you say something inappropriate, he's gonna get stuff thrown at him. In a friendly way, I made sure there was no ice in it this time, just fizzy water. She added, "I told him he was an asshole and that was it," and he goes, "Oh, whatever." These words laid bare more than a joke gone wrong. They exposed a deeper fracture between two personalities who had competing ideas of how a judge should act and what respect on that panel looked like. But the drama didn't end there. By 2024 to 2025, new tensions emerged involving Mel B's relationship with fellow AGT judge Sofia Vergara. According to sources on the production team, Mel B and Sofia have an icy off-camera relationship. The Sun reported that during audition tapings in March, Mel B barely acknowledged Sofia and wouldn't make eye contact with her. Instead, Mel B spent most of her time talking to Howie Mandel or deliberately walking around to chat with Simon. This selective socializing with male judges while excluding the female judge was reminiscent of patterns that Sharon Osbourne had previously described. Whether intentional or not, it painted a picture of fractured relationships among the judging panel. Relationships that Simon, as the senior judge and show creator, could have worked to bridge, but apparently didn't. Not every fallout in Simon's world happened in front of the cameras. Some were quiet, private, and far more painful than anything seen on live TV. One of them involved someone he once called a friend, Danny Minogue. The betrayal and the breakdown. The Danny Minogue story is perhaps the most tragic of all Simon Cowell's judge conflicts. Initially brought onto the X Factor panel in 2012, Danny was positioned as a talented, accomplished performer and television personality. What followed was a 4-year nightmare that left her emotionally shattered. Crucially, in the biography Sweet Revenge, The Intimate Life of Simon Cowell by Tom Bauer, the claim surfaced that Simon once said of Danny, "She'll be the new toy," and described her with words like, "I had a crush on her. It was Danny's hair, the intimate clothes, I was like a schoolboy." These quotes positioned their professional relationship in a different light. Later on, Danny admitted that she hasn't spoken to Simon since the publication. As she told The Telegraph, "I didn't know anything about the book, and I didn't expect that level of betrayal." But it wasn't only the book that cracked the facade, it was the aftermath. According to Danny's own account in 2019, her experience on The X Factor was devastating. She revealed, "I was not at a breaking point. I was broken." That's not hyperbole. It is a public declaration of psychological damage caused by the working environment Simon Cowell helped create. The core of Danny's suffering stemmed from her relationship with Sharon Osbourne, who had a documented history of tension with her. But the critical detail is that Sharon's public attacks on Danny didn't happen in a vacuum. They happened within a show that Simon controlled. And according to Danny, there were individuals conspiring to make that happen, with her suffering providing entertainment value. In her autobiography, Danny described the experience as brutal. "Boy, did it get rough. I had to put up with insults flying at me, both on and off screen. When I sat on the judging panel next to Sharon each Saturday, having seen her publicly destroy me on yet another television show or press interview that week, I felt as if I was back at primary school, when I was forced to sit next to the school bully." Sharon, for her part, made vicious claims in her own autobiography, writing, "She clearly felt shagging Simon gave her vicarious power, and it was so immature, not to mention deeply irritating to deal with." The implication was that Danny's position on the show was exclusively due to her alleged romantic relationship with Simon, not her professional credentials. This narrative became toxic gossip that undermined her credibility and legitimacy as a judge. What makes this whole situation different for Simon is that he never publicly defended Danny or shut down these rumors. Instead, there's evidence to suggest he allowed them to persist because they served the show's narrative of drama and conflict. Biographer Tom Bauer even wrote in his book that Simon had genuine love for Danny during their time as judges together, suggesting the rumors weren't entirely unfounded, but that they were weaponized against her regardless. Danny was left in an impossible position by being demonized by fellow judges, undermined by the show's implicit endorsement of the gossip, and working in an environment where her professional contributions were constantly questioned. She felt trapped in a game that she couldn't win. Moving on, some rivalries happen behind closed doors. Others unfold in front of millions of viewers. What started as friendly competition on America's Got Talent soon turned into something more strategic, more personal. And as usual, Simon Cowell found himself right in the center of it. Howie Mandel and the Golden Buzzer Wars. If you've ever watched America's Got Talent, you most definitely know Howie Mandel is impossible to miss. The Canadian-born comedian and television host has been part of the show's DNA since 2010. His humor, energy, and offbeat personality brought a lighter edge to the panel, balancing the seriousness that Simon Cowell often carried. Before AGT, Mandel was already a household name. From his quirky stand-up comedy to his roles in Saint Elsewhere and hosting Deal or No Deal, he had built a reputation for being unpredictable, yet lovable. On AGT, Howie was the crowd's favorite fun uncle. Simon, on the other hand, was the show's stern mastermind, the man with the final say. For years, their chemistry seemed perfect. Simon was the sharp-tongued producer who called things as he saw them, while Howie offered a comedic buffer that made contestants feel at ease. Together, they created a rhythm that fans adored. But like most long-term relationships in television, things eventually got complicated. During the season 19 live shows in August 2024, an incredible acrobatic dance group called Air Footworks delivered a stunning performance to Ed Sheeran's Celestial. The performance left all judges on their feet, a rare moment of unanimous appreciation. Then Simon did something extraordinary. He stood up and announced to host Terry Crews, "I am just about to get myself fired," before reaching across to hit the golden buzzer, the most prestigious award a judge can give, sending an act straight to the finals. Now, the problem isn't that he hit the golden buzzer. The real issue is that it wasn't his buzzer to give that week. Each judge is allocated one golden buzzer per week, and it was specifically Howie Mandel's turn. Howie had made the strategic decision to use his buzzer on Air Footworks, but Simon, seeing the opportunity, literally tried to steal it. Howie's response was immediate and visceral. "I feel like I've been abused." What followed was a tense back and forth where Simon jokingly claimed he hit the buzzer first, while Howie urgently clarified, "This is mine! This is mine!" The moment was televised, dissected by fans, and revealed a troubling dynamic that Simon Cowell doesn't follow the same rules as everyone else. But this wasn't an isolated incident. Earlier in the season, Simon demanded that the judges be given 2 golden buzzers instead of 1. Something that had never happened in the show's history. NBC eventually gave in, and all judges received 2 buzzers, then 3 buzzers in the live rounds. Simon didn't just break the rules, he rewrote them to suit his preferences. There are also more troubling rumors that suggest tension between Simon and Howie, behind-the-scenes reports over decision-making authority and judging power. As has often been the case, Simon appears to view his position as granting him privileges that other judges don't enjoy. Whether it's demanding additional buzzers, making unilateral creative decisions, or simply steamrolling over colleagues' established roles, Simon operates as though the rules are suggestions. The Golden Buzzer incident became a perfect example of a larger issue showing that Simon Cowell doesn't collaborate with his fellow judges, and when they resist or assert their own authority, tensions flare. The funny thing about television legends is that success has a strange way of turning on its creators. Before we end this video, we must address Howard Stern's complex relationship with Simon Cowell, not because of personal conflict, but because of what it represents. Howard Stern, the architect, becomes obsolete. When Howard Stern joined America's Got Talent in 2012, he was already a legend. Known as the king of all media, Stern wasn't the type to play it safe. He was America's Got Talent's original shock value judge from 2012 to 2015, commanding a reported $15 million per season. He was brought in to create controversy, generate headlines, and provide unpredictable entertainment. NBC even moved AGT production from Los Angeles to New York to accommodate Stern's daily radio show duties. Stern replaced Piers Morgan as a judge, and for a while, he and Simon Cowell's visions for the show seemed aligned, even though Simon wasn't yet a regular judge on AGT when Stern joined. Stern admired Simon's ability to create global franchises, but he also saw the pressure that came with it. Simon was known for having a tight grip on creative control, and Stern wasn't someone who liked being told how to act or think. That tension would eventually define their working relationship. As the seasons went on, Howard Stern began to notice the show shifting. By 2015, he started questioning how AGT was evolving under Simon Cowell's leadership. He told listeners on his radio show that he felt the program was becoming too controlled, claiming decisions about judges and contestants were increasingly guided by branding, not talent. When Stern eventually departed, he did something revealing. He publicly anointed Simon Cowell as his successor, saying, "Simon Cowell wants it anyway. He would be good at it." However, over the years, Stern has become increasingly critical of Simon's leadership on AGT. In 2019, when Gabrielle Union and Julianne Hough were controversially fired from the show, Stern didn't hold back. He directly accused Simon of orchestrating their dismissals and pointed out a blatant double standard. He has set it up that the men stay, no matter how old they are, no matter how fat they are, no matter how ugly they are, no matter talentless they are. But what he manages to do on all his shows is he constantly replaces the hot chicks with hotter chicks and younger chicks, which is so obvious. Stern's criticism echoed complaints from Sharon Osbourne about ageism and sexism, suggesting a systemic pattern in how Simon treats female judges versus male judges. When Tyra Banks, Heidi Klum, and Mel B left, the men, Terry Crews, Howie Mandel, and Simon himself, remained on the panel. In the end, Howard Stern's time on America's Got Talent became a turning point for both men. For Stern, it was a reminder that television is a business first, art second. For Simon, it reaffirmed his belief that no one is indispensable in his world. Do you think Simon Cowell really named his worst judges, or the few who dared to challenge the king of talent television on his own throne? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. To enjoy more content like this, click on the next video on your screen.